welcome back. So we left off about to check out the Easter egg stuff, the museum that we accidentally did preemptively, because I think we finally got a lot of the stuff done. So kind of want to check out and see like how some of the stuff worked. Kind of like a director's commentary kind of thing.
Yeah, this is actually pretty interesting. And the one thing that I'm glad that we did stop after when we first started. Because I don't know how, it's kind of funny that we got to this like what on our second try.
Yeah, because we got way too curious. I didn't know it was gonna lead to this. It was kind of weird to see it so early. Like the office layout, like it's funny to look at it now because you're like, it looks so chaotic when you actually get in it, and looking at it like this, you're like, oh wow, well this is actually a lot simpler.
Yeah,
that's where the windows definitely are. That window you jump out of over there.
Is this one right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, it's that one.
Yeah, it's that one.
And then there's the corridor that leads to the decision.
Yeah. Funnily enough, that's how the doors work, I guess. Yeah, the very first, the rest of the game. Huh. What's that over there, like ahead of you? Oh, those are just cabinets. Okay.
Yeah, filing cabinets. Then we have the different types of office computers. Someone's playing solitaire. Employee database.
That solitaire thing is really nostalgic. Like I remember playing solitaire on, like back when like Windows 98 computers were a thing.
Yeah.
Like I used to just play solitaire all the time. Like I thought it was so cool, and I had Pac-Man on it. Here's the meaningless buttons. What does the description say on that?
This is the button sounds. Yeah, different.
Okay.
Each sound is a mix of keyboard strokes and a synthesized tone. Interesting.
I feel scammed looking at those buttons because when I looked it up and I was like, oh, it doesn't do anything. I'm like, no, I thought there was an ending behind that.
There's more of the office. Here's that maintenance room thing, which makes it look creepier than last time.
It's a creepy looking. It really is. Like the lighting makes it look kind of like uncomfortable.
I don't want to go to
even
the
as a painting.
Just to see. Oh yeah.
I think you can sprint with shift. Or no?
No.
Okay.
So the boss's office. Some
screens from the development of the office. I guess like the left and the right one were like Half-Life mod versions of it.
Probably.
Or something, like just beta versions. Because the middle one's definitely like, okay, like that's the one.
Right.
The first time around, I thought there were different versions of that office.
Yeah, so did I. I thought like depending, exactly. Like depending on what happens or what choices you made, it would come out different. Oh, this is that narrator room that we were in last time.
Oh yeah.
Like some of the outtakes that they had.
Roughly 3 separate times. Oh wait, what is it? 3 separate times. Try to write the sign. Stanley, calm down. Three different times. Over 2 years of development. These are clips. I remember reading that before, but that's crazy. 2 years.
Yeah.
This kind of makes me like excited about like game development in general, like just seeing this stuff.
Yeah.
Early version underground.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, it's cool. I read it.
Okay. Yeah, it looks completely different.
Yeah. I think like when you're making like a Half-Life mod, there's like some shortcuts you can make to like make the game. But then once it gets popular, you can go like, okay, let me flesh this out and do our own engine or do something like this.
Yeah.
Build it in Unity or something.
Yeah. Pretty cool. Freedom ending.
You see that? Like the first time I saw it, I was like, that looks like a painting. But now that I know that it's an actual ending, like an ending, it's crazy.
Yeah. Here's more freedom,
it's like
more of the freedom ending.
You know what's weird about those computers? They're modern compared to the Office ones. Like the Office ones look like they're very old.
Wait, did we ever get this? One of the deaths from an early version of the countdown. Okay.
Yeah.
So this was previous. Okay. I was like,
if
what?
we got that, then we. Yeah. Guess it.
The game is now paused to begin the game. This is the escape menu. A long time we had an ending that only ended when the player restarted from the escape menu. Unfortunately, very few players realized that was the purpose, which was frustrating for everyone.
Which I can get, because the few endings that you do, like before when we were trying to restart a bunch of times, like those are the niche endings. I'm guessing during early development, a lot of the game was involving you like actually restarting the game manually.
Interesting. Zending. This screenshot depicts an early version of the ending known as the Zending, which was eventually cut from and merged with another part of the game. Interesting.
I think those are the stairs.
Oh, these are the Zending levers. Okay. The Zending model.
Originally part of the Zending. Huh. What is that? Zending. Oh, Zending model. Okay. Shortly before launch. Oh. Weird.
Huh. Yeah, interesting.
Huh.
Let's go this way. Oh. What just happened?
I think the game crashed.
Yeah, I think my game crashed.
No, cool. The game crashed.
We'll be right back. Or would we?
Yeah.
Actually. Now that I think about it.
Well, I think we covered everything we were gonna cover.
Yeah, there was a few more things that I wanted to look at, but yeah, I think that's gonna be it for right now because the game crashed on us.
Yeah.
So thanks for watching, everybody. This was. Oh wait.
Oh, it's back.
Nope, never mind. It's back. It's not back. It's gone.
Okay, it's gone. All right. Well, thanks for coming on a ride with us with this game. It was a lot of fun, and just not what I expected.
Yeah.
Considering this was like a blind playthrough.
Yeah, this was fun. I like this game. I kind of like these games with multiple endings, or just different stances on like how to take on a game, because normally you play a game and it's always this kind of similar thing. You run through, it's an adventure, or you get a nice crazy story out of it. But this one's very, very not the standard, I guess.
It's experimental. I guess this is like the, what is it? It's like the Stanley Kubrick, not the Stanley Kubrick. What am I saying? It's like that psychedelic, like, I don't even know if it's psychedelic. This is hard to describe, but it's like Memento, right? Like that movie, when you watch it, it doesn't have like the story structure that a normal movie has, right?
Right.
Like that's the kind. This is that kind of game. Like it's like Memento, where it's like it breaks a lot of rules for games, where it goes like, we're gonna let the player like break the game, or let them think that they broke the game, when in reality it's part of the game, or like remove the illusion of choice, but then actually you didn't have a choice, or like just a lot of narrative things that were really interesting about that, and like it made the game feel like, did I do that, or like I restarted the game, but am I still in this storyline of this part of the ending, or is this normal? Like what's going on? Like it tricks you into thinking things like that. I just thought was very interesting. I don't know why like games these days don't do that, like bigger games.
I think it's primarily just due to the fact that it's the bigger titles are more into like finding like franchises to make, or that's how they can make multiples of them, you know what I mean, instead of something that's very niche and specific. They try to they always try to do some sorry Sorry. So
no
pretty much like what I was trying to say is that not third party, like indie developers are able to kind of take this branching, like, you know, branching ideas that are very different, very distinct, and make it their own story. Where, you know, AAA title or AAA developers normally, they're trying to appeal to the masses because they want those franchises. They want the ability to make more out of like a single title, almost.
So you would say, I guess, in that narrative, like, okay, video games are mainstream and they're basically like movies or music, and the expectation that games that do unique things as a main like popular title like that is kind of out the window. Or like when this unique movie that people are like, oh wow, that's like crazy, that's like super interesting and stuff, like let's say Juno, right? Like that gets really popular only because of how interesting it is and how it got pushed in marketing, versus like, you know, your run of the mill like popular movies that come out, like your Marvels or your like, I don't know, I'm trying to think, like your date movies or whatever, you know, like those romantic movies and stuff that everyone just sits and watches and stuff. Like I guess like games have moved into that like category. Like now it's like, okay, there's music, there's movies and TV shows, and there's video games, and now people just pick one of those three.
Yeah, I could, definitely kind of agree with that.
Because I think that video games have more niches to it. It's not like movies and TV shows. Like I guess with YouTube, like there's a lot of niches that you can watch whatever you feel like whenever, right? But like it's a bit different with video games. Like it's harder to develop a video game, and it's harder to find a good idea to develop a video game. But anyone can make it, right? I can just go on itch.io and I can just publish my game for free. I can do it on Steam too. I can just do whatever, just put it on free and be like, here, like, just I want people to play it, right? You can't really do that with movies, unless I guess you can, technically, with like YouTube. But like it, you know how like it's just like more difficult like to get it out in the open. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
The second half of it, yeah.
No, yeah, for sure. It's just one of those things that like, because niche games, specific, like indie developer games, when you make them, you have to try to find a way to gather that audience. That's how people can actually play it. It's, as you said, it's simple. I can develop a game, put it out there, and then people can try to play it. But something like Stanley Parable that stands out so dramatically, like I knew of the Stanley Parable for years. I knew of it. I never played it until now. So it's one of those things that like, I play all, Assassin's Creeds and all these other different games, but finding that those niche titles that stand out amongst the sea of other games can sometimes be difficult. Like, when you first hear about Stanley's Parable, for someone that's trying not to spoil it, especially if they've played it, it's one of those kind of like, word of mouth, like just trust me, play it, you'll enjoy it, or maybe you'll get weirded out and figure out this weird narrative that they're trying to develop.
Yeah, like, and like just to put an example, right? When you're making a movie, let's say like a short film, you need actors, you need your cinematographer or someone who's recording, and you need someone to edit, right? When you're doing a game, like there's so much involved and so little involved depending on what you're trying to do, right? With the Stanley Parable, first iteration, you just use the assets that you had in the game, right? You didn't have to make any assets, and you were fine. It was done, right? But when they had to like do an actual game by itself, they had to build their assets and art assets and stuff like that. But the game's pretty simple in general, so there's not too much extra to do. But then you go and you like develop a game like, I don't know, Shantae. Shantae is like that like it's that freaking pirate game or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's very well drawn with sprites. And the sprites are very well drawn, but then they also have like art assets when there's dialogue. So you need two different sets of artists to just do that alone, right? Then you need people to code the game from scratch, because it's not like the Stanley Parable where it's working off of like Unity. It's built for, like, from scratch, and you have to build it for different platforms. And then you have to make sure the platform works fine, and that it's fun to play, and that all the mechanics are there. And then you have to make sure it's compatible with every platform you're doing it for. So it's like, it's so much more complicated than movies, but it can get so much more simpler than movies. So like it's at both different sides of the spectrum of difficulty, where like making a movie is like in the middle, where it's pretty difficult to get it all done. But if you make it, you can make it way more difficult, even way more difficult in the video games, right? So like it's hard to really define like how that medium is supposed to go. And then you go into VR, which is like a whole nother like complicated thing to talk about, because VR is like it's technically not the same experience, and it's video games, but then like, is it, because it's interactive medium, like, you know, sometimes it isn't a video game, someone's just having an experience through VR. Like it's weird. It's a weird medium. I know, like, this kind of turned into a podcast because our game crashed, but it's good podcast, to like, it's good to dissect this sometimes and be like, okay, well, this is like, you know, because like a game like Stanley Parable doesn't come in like, it's not a common type of game, right? Because before this, you had like Portal. Like there were some games that were kind of like that in between, but like Portal 1 specifically is the last game that I played that felt a lot like this, where there were interesting game mechanics, but the main part of the game was the narrative, and the narrative was very interesting, despite the fact that there were a lot of, like, you know, puzzles and stuff like that. The Stanley Parable does like this thing where it doesn't have specifically game mechanics to deal with,
mm-hmm.
but it leans even harder on the narrative, where the narrative is like better than Portal 1, but Portal 1 has its mechanics to lean on, because that, you know, that kind of gameplay didn't exist before then. There was like some beta stuff and some weird niche games that did it okay, and then Portal was like, okay, let's use that for this game, right? So
right,
it's hard to find games that have that narrative that makes it feel like more personal, I guess. Like I want to throw that example because that's what I've been playing recently, but I'm playing what's that game called? Oh my god. Quantum Break. I'm playing Quantum Break, right? So Quantum Break, great game, right? I love the mechanics, I love the story and all this, but I don't feel like I'm the character. I feel like I'm watching the story and I'm experiencing the story. And the narrative of the game is so different than something like Stanley Parable, because Stanley Parable is about choices, right? You get different endings, depending on what you do and stuff like that. Quantum Break is the same way, where you make choices and it changes the outcome of the game and the story. And there's a live action, like, I guess, you know, like a TV series that plays after you finish an act in the game. And the episode, like the TV show episode, this is with live actors, like live versions of those actors that you see in the game, right? You see it, and the footage plays differently depending on what you've done in the game. So you're watching your own episode that you technically like had a decision in changing, right? It's way more complex in decision making than Stanley Parable, but somehow Stanley Parable feels way more personal than Quantum Break, even though Quantum Break is very interesting. So it's crazy. It's wild to think that, like, okay, Stanley Parable is like, you make a few decisions here and some crazy shit happens and you feel like, okay, well, this is like fun and engaging, but it's short and it's fine. Quantum Break it's like a whole production value thing. And the reason I bring up Quantum Break is because they're doing both, right? They're doing TV show production value stuff, like pretty high value, like special effects, stunt work. There's a lot of stunt work in that show, I guess in that game. I was gonna say show, but it's like both in the live action scenes and stuff, right? And the game production quality is very high. Like there's a lot of like the mechanics are tight. There's a lot of time like manipulation mechanics that are really crazy, that probably took a lot of time to code. Like the story narrative is good. There's a lot of lore that you pick up. There's leveling up. It's like a very complicated game / TV series. So this game is probably very expensive. It was probably really expensive to make, and it's free on Xbox, like Gold, like Xbox games and whatever, right?
The thing that surprises me the most with games like that have multiple different choices, multiple different scenarios, scenes, and then even to the point where, like you said with Quantum Break, where it's live action scenes that your choices break down into, is the writing behind all those things. Like, to be able to have a continuous narrative that is that has all those multiple different endings, that is congruent and actually makes sense, is very difficult.
Yeah, it's ridiculously difficult. Yeah, and if you take, for example, like a movie about time travel, right? You have your logic trees, and you say, okay, we're gonna do this, and this in the movie, and do this, but we have to keep track of this thread in case it's important, right? In a game, all of the timeline decisions are important because the player is going to make any of those decisions, and you have to take that into account. So the writing, like you said, you have to be really good at doing that. But in a video game, you have to be even better at doing that, because there's some things in like the game that I'm doing that I did way back in Act 1 that had an impact in the live action episode in Act 3, which I'm like in Act 3 now, and I just finished watching like the episode of it, and it's crazy. And here's how complicated it is. Here's how complex it is, right? When you play the game, when it streams the episode, it has to break down the episode that's gonna load in, and all the clips and all the editing. So it's technically editing clips together and creating the story while you're playing the game when you finish the act, so that it plays the episode. It's like a 40-minute episode, right? You have the option to download the episodes instead of streaming it from their server. You want to know how big that is? Like the video files all together. You know how big you want to know how big the file is?
Probably like a few gigs.
Give me a ballpark on how much do you think it is?
Like one episode?
Like all, like you have the option. You have the option to download, like, because it's hard to say like one episode, because one episode has too many different outcomes per scene, right? And the outcome of each scene determines the outcome of the following scenes, right? So think about that level of complexity, and just give me a ballpark on how big that file is. That lets you download all of the footage.
200 gigabytes.
You overshot it, but it is pretty big. It's 78 gigabytes of just footage that compiles into the episodes that it creates. And each episode is 40 minutes.
That's insane.
So, like, the complexity of coding that you have to do to actually have, I guess, automate the editing to put together the decisions you made in the game so far, to create the live episode in a way that narratively makes sense, and then coordinate with the writing team to make sure it's all okay, and then also have the coding team add in the narrative, because there's things you pick up in the game and things you interact with, like small stuff. Like, okay, smallest example that made the hugest impact. Shot a bunch, I cleared a room because I was under attack, blah, blah, blah. Cleared the room. There's like a parking lot. And there's like an iPad sitting next to one of the radio for all the soldiers. You could press the play button on the iPad to play like this annoying book narrator play, like narrating some book. into their private line. And when you do it, you hear, in the game, like, people are getting annoyed because they can't do any comms for all the soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
In the episode, when it plays, if you did that decision, it has an impact on the episode with the soldiers within the live episode. So they recorded a version of certain scenes where they include that tiny decision that you made in that room. Like, that's insane. There's probably like hundreds and hundreds of hours of footage just sitting somewhere on a server that was unused because they just reshot so many times. It's crazy.
Yeah. Man, that actually makes me. I'm kind of interested in playing that game, so maybe I'll pick it up one of these days.
It's really good, but it's really dense. There's a lot of time travel stuff, like lore and stuff like that. I love time travel, so I don't mind it. I love it.
So do I. I love time travel, isn't it? Because since we don't have a solid like theory on time travel, it's open for interpretation on whoever writes it, whoever the artist is. So it's very interesting.
You know what's really cool about the powers that you use? Okay, so you're basically like the Flash, but you have a gun. That's it. That's it.
That's pretty cool. Well,
yeah,
I'm gonna say that seems pretty interesting, so I might give it a try. But we are at time.
Yeah.
So pick this up. Maybe we'll pick this up next time and continue the conversation there. Not sure on what we're gonna play next time. Maybe we'll continue Horizon Zero Dawn, or maybe we'll do something else.
Or maybe we'll play Mega Man 7. I don't know. I might throw that out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is fun. Stanley Parable was fun. Getting those different endings was very interesting.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Yeah, good times were had.
All right. Well, take care, everybody. We'll catch you later. Bye.
Yeah. Peace.